Okay, welcome to the third episode of What's Beyond the Resume. First, we have a star guest, Mr. Shiv Gupta. Would you please introduce yourself?
Hi. Thanks for having me here. Myself, Shiv Gupta. I'm a chartered accountant from India with about 22 years of experience. I'm also a US CPA and have done few other management degrees as well, including one from IIM Ahmedabad. I'm currently working with a reputed educational institution group in India as a chief finance officer. Previously, I have worked with many different industries and different organizations. Primarily, majority of my career had been with North America headquartered multinational companies, and I have handled profile based in India, profile in finance for India as well as many other Asian countries.
Yeah, that's great. So, what inspired you to have a career in finance?
So I think when I started, let's say, pursuing my chartered accountancy, it was late 90s. Uh, it was not as dynamic as it is today, and there were not many options. And I had a genuine interest in numbers, mathematics, and not as much interest in science. So I had an inclination towards taking up commerce as a stream. And then I was good in studies, so I thought, like, what next? So to build the career, I was looking for some real professional qualification in finance or in the commerce side. So the CA is like, the top rated qualification. So I ended up doing CA, and then the journey started from there. And I worked in different areas and different organizations. Apart from numbers, I think one thing which I have realized after some time I worked in finance is that finance is not really just a back office kind of a function, and especially working in finance, you get visibility, you get a perspective of the overall organization. So you might be, let's say, working in a sales function or a marketing function or an operations function. You will have limited visibility, but finance is something that gives you a perspective of the overall business. So I found that interesting. And that's how my journey started in finance.
So, two questions. First, you mentioned how it's changed a lot from 90s to now. In what ways has it changed?
See, I think the biggest change is that, as I said, it used to be a retroactive function. So we used to, let's say, in the initial part of my career, we used to say finance job is to do postmortem. People, let's say, for example, there was an example that we used to give people travel, and then they do meetings and whatever, they work on business, then they come back and they submit their invoices, and then finance is just reviewing their bills, what they have incurred, and so on and so forth. So that kind of thing was there in finance. We were doing historical reportings, we were doing just some kind of data crunching and things like that. Finance at that point in time did not have a seat on the table. Like the CFO positions were not very common, especially in the small to mid kind of organization, and it was only limited to very, very big organizations. So now comparing that to the world today, or at least let's say last few years, things have really, really changed. Even if you see a startup, so maybe one of the critical hire that any startup do as soon as they start kind of taking few steps is to hire a CFO. So CFO is one of the most critical, or one of the most recognized leader in the entire C-suite after the CEO. As I said, he has the perspective of overall organization. He's someone who enables the growth, while maintaining those conditions or limitations of not overstepping on, let's say, on the compliance side, or not overcommitting on your financial resources. So the role is kind of transformed into a very different uh, line. So it is not only a controller kind of a role who takes control of things, but it's also enabler role as well. So I think that is the major change that has happened. And finance has also become more proactive. So instead of just thinking or analyzing the data of the past performance. There is a lot of, forecasting tools are there. There is a risk management, which has become an integral part of finance. So that's how the transformation has really become from a back end, you know, a retroactive function to a proactive function.
Yeah. Yeah, from what I understand, in the 90s, it was a lot about checking finances to make sure everything was accurate. But now
Yeah.
everything is about forecasting in the next quarter, next year.
Yeah, even exactly, and even in terms of checking, the time lag has. So there are some real time controls and checks and balances inbuilt through the technology also. So that is the another thing. The technological intervention has really geared up. It's everywhere, but also in finance. The technology has really changed how people work in finance.
Yeah. Coming back to your role as a CFO, just a light question, like what do you enjoy most about your job and what is like a day-to-day, uh, yeah, what is a day-to-day life?
So I think. My day-to-day involves a lot of things, howsoever managed we may be, but there are certain things which is not part of your plan, but which comes in your lap, and then you have to handle it. But yes, in terms of the most interesting things that I love doing is interacting with people, interacting with cross-functional leaders, interacting with my team over in finance. That's something gives you a real perspective how the people are working, what they are doing, and what are the where they, the culture of the organization heading. So that is something very, very important. So and yes, then there are some few things that I have to do, let's say on a regular basis, which could be taking follow up with the team or spending time on certain things that I'm managing directly or which are in my high priority area. But one thing that I intentionally do, unless there is sometimes there is a very critical situation which kind of takes over the entire schedule, but I really try having at least an hour or two as my focus time. So which is some time which is, and typically I keep it in the later half of the day. Once you kind of land in the office, you have a lot of emails to answer. You have a lot of people might be looking to meet you. So I typically try to have some time towards the later half of the day, and then an hour or two I spend both in terms of, let's say, in my sometimes in my professional development also, as well as some of the things that I'm working on it, which are on like my direct priorities, which could be some kind of strategic initiative that I'm looking to take, or certain follow-ups that I'm doing on things. So those kind of things I keep in my focus area, and then rest is kind of a mix of meetings, uh, calls, and follow up with the team, spending time with the team.
You mentioned interacting. I was wondering, how do you interact with different fields? So do you work at all with like the marketing team talking about budget, or do you work with the main production team, figure out how will this budget work and if it's actually feasible?
It is. So I think, see, as you said, whatever function it is, in today's world, you can't just do, what is your budget? Give me your budget, and I will do. Your budget was $100, and I want to make it $80. So that's not something that typically works today. So what you have to really understand, what is the role this function is playing, how they are critical, what are their strategic alignment and importance towards the organizational goal. What is their strategy? And these days, there are these top-down approaches that we typically follow in corporates and other organizations, where we have an organizational goal, then supporting the organizational goal, they are a functional goal of the respective department. So I try to basically spend and understand what the department is looking to, what are their plans, what are their strategies, and then probably come back to the second half part of it, which is what resources they need, what is their execution plan, what are the things that are needed, and then work on the financial part of it, commercial part of it. And sometimes, it is not really, like I said, not really a job of just reducing 10%, 20% out of the budget. Sometimes you end up, after the discussion, you see that, you're talking about doing ABC, but you have not accounted for the resources that you would need to do that. So you end up increasing the budget as well. So that's how basically you enable the business. And so that's interaction, and that understanding the perspective of the other department becomes very, very critical.
I see. Understanding why you need to increase or decrease. Yeah.
Yes,
Point.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
makes sense. Talking about the finance role, I've in school, I've taken economics courses, accounting courses, business courses, etc. What what from your studies have you actually used in the workforce? And yeah, and why?
See, these courses that you do the formal education that you do over the period is very relevant. It's really very relevant to build your conceptual understanding, to understand how things work in a theoretical way, in a conceptual way. But what personally I have seen, those things cannot be applied directly to a business situation. The things on the ground is very, very different. And especially, as I said, the today's finance or today's business is very dynamic. We see a lot of startups. They are burning cash like anything. They're probably the burn rate is 50%, 70%, 80%. So their burn rate increase from, let's say, 50% to 70%, the valuation increases from 100% to 150%, whatever. So those are the things, that is something is beyond the theory. No theory will tell you that, hey, if the burn rate is increasing, then the valuation of the organization would increase. So that's how you basically have to again put things in perspective and leverage on those concepts and evaluate the business situation basis that, and then see what is the strategic importance, what is the goal that you are trying to achieve. So I typically give examples to many people that say, let's say I am a chartered accountant who qualified 23 years back versus someone who qualified 6 months back. I may not have maybe as less as probably 10-15% of the theoretical knowledge or the textbook knowledge that the other person would have who has just qualified 6 months back. But market would value me, the industry would value my experience way above what this fresh chartered accountant is there who's qualified with a lot of book knowledge and everything. So that's how basically, but that having said that, that is your foundation, but you can't really stop on that foundation and then just try to roam around there. You have to keep building on that foundation and grow it in terms of the realistic business situation and see how you can apply and transform.
Mhm. That makes sense. Thank you. One thing that you mentioned, evaluations. Whenever I see these on the news, I think they're basically just made up numbers. Like somebody comes in, if a company is making no money, making no profit, it's just increasing costs and the evaluation goes up. As an accountant or as a financial person, do you think how do these evaluations get made is basically my question.
See, this is basically, first of all, it is not based on what you are doing today. It is based on what you can do or what you are expected to do over maybe next year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year. So it is the valuation is mostly based on the potential, what uniqueness you have um, in the business proposition that you are offering, how competitive you are, what is your competitive strength. So there are multiple factors. So the thing is that, and what you can further build on it. So let's say sometimes nowadays there is a different thing that I have observed. So there is a business which even maybe in a medium term to long term will not really make you a significant money, but that will give you some non-financial advantage, whether it's, let's say, a customer information or entry to the market. Then once you are at that particular level, even if you are at a break even or you are making negative margin, but you can probably build on that and create another business or create another vertical. So you really have to see the potential of it, and that's how the evaluations are done. Unfortunately, we also see, having said that, all these things, we also see there are, sometimes there are valuation which goes as fast as it was increasing on the other side as well. We have seen some examples of things going wrong as well. But yes, I think in general, I think it's a positive sentiment everywhere. It's a positive world. So people really think of the potential.
And do you think these are important, having a high evaluation?
See, you have to strike a balance. See, if you are let's say starting a business and you are let's say logically you should be valued at X and you are valued at 3X. So that doesn't mean that your business will grow 3X. Ultimately, you will the industry, the kind of the business forces and the market would catch up on you, and then you will be not in a tough situation, you not be in a good situation. So I think the balance has to be really there. Some of the organization that I have seen, they got so high valued that that kind of became one of the reason of bringing them down.
Yeah.
So and having said that, see one thing that I have heard from many founders as well. So see we feel that we see a lot of news these days. Hey, these guys have got this much funding, and then we see, oh, this guy must be very happy. But with that funding, comes that the accountability also, comes the pressure also to give returns on that investment. And if your funding that you have got, if the valuation that you have got is not, is consistent with the what the capability or potential of the business, then you will be kind of burdened under that pressure.
Hmm.
So there has to be a right balance that you have to strike.
That makes sense. Yeah. What about a personal anecdote? Could you speak about a time where you made a mistake and had to quickly adjust or do something because of that?
Yeah, I think so. It's basically based on what I said, that how the finance is transformed. So I remember I was working for an organization and I've joined them um, recently, like few months back, as a head of finance, and we were working on a public sector organization's tender, which has a revenue potential of, let's say, about, I think, about 30 million USD over 5 years. So, as a typical finance person, I was insisting, hey, we should have maybe a good double-digit margin, maybe in the range of 12 to 15% on what we are going to be bidding for that tender. But my CEO was having a very, very different view. He was saying he wants to go a single-digit negative margin and bid for that. So, I was initially very kind of against it, and I was reporting to the global CFO. I gave my recommendation, hey, we should not be accepting the recommendation of the CEO. It is he's being mad, and he's uh, looking to bid at a negative margin. But then we had a meeting when the CEO presented his views, his perspective, what his strategy is, that probably we might have a negative margin on this deal, but this one deal would bring us maybe another 50 deals in future. It will open new doors for us, and the business and the valuation of the organization or the business would grow significantly. So no, so that was a great learning for me, and that you can't just see things in a standalone basis. You have to see how this particular, maybe there could be, like we say, you sometimes when you want to run or you want to take the next steps, you have to take a step back. So you that was a great learning for me.
One step back to two steps forward.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the same realm, um, whenever you had to quickly adjust a plan,
So I think two times I would say. This is probably common for many organizations and many people. One was the when there was demonetization in India. So I was working with a payments company, and we were dealing in POS machines, on the machines on which we swipe cards to ensure to facilitate digital payments. So we were doing fine in the business, but the demonetization was announced in India, and suddenly the 500 rupees and 1,000 rupees was notes were out of circulation. So it was a very significant increase in demand for digital payments, as well as for the POS machines. So everywhere we start getting demands, and we almost suddenly got to a volume which was, let's say, at least 6 to 8 times higher than our usual volume that we were selling. So we had to adjust our supply chain. We had to adjust our financial processes. We had to, you know, adjust our logistics operations, everything. And then on top of it, the bigger challenge was that then we have to also, because it was a payment is not, is not an open kind of a sector. It's a regulated sector. So you also have to ensure that you are complying. And government was also very kind of closely monitoring things because it was a very critical situation in the country with post the demonetization. So I think that was a very good experience that I had. How quickly we changed the way we were doing business, the way we were doing our pricing and logistics and everything. And that was an amazing experience.
Could you explain the demonetization a little bit more? I'm not aware.
So demonetization, I think it was 2016. So one fine day, 8 o'clock in the evening, the Prime Minister of India came on the national television and he said 4 hours from now, which is midnight, uh, the two biggest currency notes, which was rupees 500 and rupees 1000 at that point in time, would be out of circulation. So there will not be a legal tender after 4 hours. And they'll be issuing fresh currency note. Basically, this was the intention was to, take hold of the counterfeiting currency, which was apparently circulating. So that, you could imagine that led to a big chaos in the country. Suddenly you have, the currency notes lying with you and then which is out of circulation. And people was really, running towards the banks or exchanging their currency notes. And government also, it was you can't print the new currency in a day. So the government also took time to reprint the currency and then circulated it in, the it's not a small country. It's a big country with a very big population size. So it was a real chaos at that time.
Yeah. So learning how to adjust, how to quickly change plans.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And the learning was that I think then you have to be agile. You don't know. The things can turn anyway. Like COVID could be one example, and many of the organizations saw how things change in COVID. So you have your business, your operations, your processes have to be agile.
Yeah. And then how do you recommend breaking into the financial field, whether it's internships, volunteering? How do you recommend getting experience?
So I think you have to make right choices. So it's no more that kind of situation that you just reach out to someone, hey, I want some opportunity, I want to do internship with so and so. And so you have to think what you want to do and how you can contribute to that organization. So so it's basically changing your perspective again. Instead of saying that, hey, I want an opportunity for internship, uh, anybody will appreciate if you, let's say, if you come to me or someone comes to you, hey, I see your organization is doing this, and I see that this thing could be done in a better way, or this is something where I can be of help, and I'm looking for a valuable experience of working in this area, this domain. So it would be great if I can work as an intern and help me and help myself learning new things, and maybe in the process I will also end up helping the organization. So you have to make your right choices and approach it in a right way. So if you just think that maybe I just go, whether it's A, B, C, D, whatever I get, I'll just go and get the opportunity, it might be difficult. You have to show that how you can create the value for the organization.
Making your case, you look
Yeah,
stand out.
yeah, and try to align it with what you want to do in your career, let's say in a mid to longer term, and then maybe plan according to that.
Hmm. So what would your tip be then for somebody my age, 17, 16, perhaps high school? What do you think they should do? Because right now you,
So I think apart from, like I said, the formal education or the conceptual understanding is critical. So you have to master that. Plus, I think you also have to start understanding, even like at this age when you are, let's say, undergrad or something, you start understanding how business operates. Identify what kind of industry, what kind of businesses interest you. Start understanding how do they operate. What are the nuances of that business? What's the industry situation? What's the industry size? What is the growth potential? Just start understanding about as much as possible about the business, and you can imagine if you go to a business leader or a finance leader in that particular organization or a sector, and then you talk about good about the business, you talk how what are the challenges the business has been facing, and what are the things which have been, let's say, a recent development, or what could be your some of your ideas. So I think that will be a very different conversation. And
Yeah.
as I said, even in terms of the role that finance has been playing recently is to be very, very close to the business. So that has to start right from your education level.
One of my friends, somebody I knew, he went into investment banking. And I asked him, what tip do you have to do to go in investment banking? He said, every single morning, just look at the markets, try to understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
I
like
think
I said, this valuation thing that we were discussing. So there is no, a mathematical formula to there are certain, but every time those formulas are defined. So you have to understand how these things work, what are the dynamics are there. So you have to really go beyond the theoretical knowledge or the formulas which are there. Understand the business, understand the dynamics. So that will be really helpful.
so in conclusion, we've learned a lot about understanding what makes your case, understanding that in a business, it's a lot about working together in finance, understanding that different um, branches in the same company can all have a same common goal and just having a meeting it. And do you have any questions for me or anything for that?
Yeah, maybe what are I would say what is probably one key thought um, that that you would pick from our conversation.
I'd say one key thought, one that really showed up to me, was making a case. Because
Okay.
because everything, even if you go through the same path as everybody, you wouldn't stand out. You wouldn't be able to be different, even if you
Yeah.
think you were. But trying to do something that some think are bad, like evaluating a business before asking for an interview, or evaluating this is a potential where you could go into, or something that I think you're lacking. While it may seem rude for a second, if you have proper research, proper explanations, I think it'll be much more uh excited to welcome you on board, or at least much
Yeah.
consider it a lot more than if you just said, "Oh, I want an interview."
True. 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 That's very, very important. And in fact, one more point that I would add is that, especially at a mid-level to senior level hiring, one of the key things that is being assessed these days is fitment to the culture, the organizational culture. So I think if you do this kind of prep, then you are demonstrating that you are a fit for the organization, because you might be good in functional, like, you might be good in the experience, but if you're not fitting into the culture of the organization, that sometimes become a very big challenge.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. That was all my
Yeah,
questions. I really appreciate it.
great. You're most welcome, and thank you for you being here and inviting me for this conversation. Interesting.
No
And I'm
problem.